calling the Tuesday, August 15th, 1 p.m. School Board Workshop meeting to order. At this time, I'll ask everybody to please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, NBC. Before we do roll call, I just want to thank our fine arts faculty. That was an amazing rendition of our national anthem. All right, roll call.
Will Furry, President.
Christy Chong.
Sally Hunt. Colleen Conway, President.
Cheryl Massaro.
LaShawn Moore.
All right. Do we have any special announcements? Board member liaison updates. Starting down at the end, Mr. Ferry, do you have any yet?
Okay, just not any real specific, other than just a reminder of a couple of scheduled meetings for the EPAC, the ESE Parent Advisory Council. We'll be meeting right here in this room here Wednesday, August 16th at 6 p.m. And for the SAC meeting at Indian Trails that was scheduled for the 17th, but that was canceled. And there is a new date, which will be August 31st at 5:30 p.m. So that's what we have.
Ms. John.
I have nothing yet for the year.
Ms. Sutton.
Same as Will, I have a meeting, Carver Center Board on the 17th. And so I'll have an update on that at the next meeting.
Dr. Conklin.
I guess I have nothing before the start of the school year with the exception of for the legislative platform. I know FSBA is going to have their meeting on the 22nd of September. And we were talking about putting on the agenda the development of the legislative platform. Will we be able to get that on the agenda for a workshop before the 22nd?
Yes.
Okay, great. And we did we submit, I think, who was going to be the legislative liaison?
It's Will and, yes.
Yeah, I think Christy took that one.
Okay. Great. So we've got that. I'm chairing the state committee, so we can have.
Excellent.
So Christy, I'll keep you in the loop then.
Okay.
But have we submitted that to FSBA?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, we're going on then to myself. I've got three. Matthias High School SAC, actually their first SAC meeting is tomorrow, so we'll report up to them at 6 o'clock at Matthias High School. Focus on Flagler Youth Coalition, they just received 1,800 Know the Law books, which included update information and the new PowerPoint for students during the 23-24 school year. I believe it's every 7th grader gets a copy of those books, which is good. They understand what's happening as far as the law goes, and there's been so many updates, we need to have that, that's a plus. They also, they're going to have their Natural High events that support activities for supporting being tobacco and drug free, and they'll continue this entire school year. And yes, again, we'll have the virtual teen town halls. When we get school liaisons, they will be in charge of that, and it'll end up with a teen town summit. Flagler Auditorium had a big meeting. It was actually their annual meeting for finances, and they had their audit reviewed. The 22-23 revenues were up substantially for the pro shows, and the financial audit was clear with no issues. Yep, they're actually going to present it to us in October, so we'll have a better detail about that. The auditorium will receive close to $50,000 in general support grants from the state, city, and local services this year. The auditorium gave close to $10,000 in teacher grants this past year. The auditorium is looking to create a student ambassador program. Students volunteer now, but they will want to better coordinate with their student leaders in both high schools to get them to be more active at the auditorium. And that'll eventually kind of walk over to scholarships, and that's what they're working towards, more of them. The National Arts and Education Week is September 11th and 16th, and they will actually have a proclamation this evening, and that'll be read by Ms. Norman. That's all that I have for our liaison. All right, next we are down to public comment. Ms. Gavin, do we have public comment?
We do not
We
have
no
anybody
public.
signed in.
Anybody here that would like to speak before maybe not have signed up? Okay, come on up.
Name's Mike Cochio. I'm Pond Coast. Just a couple things on my mind. One is the initiative in Florida for the classic test. I guess it's classic learning test in lieu of the ACT or the SAT. Are there plans for that in Flagler schools? And the second thing is these so-called historical films by something called PragerU, which have a slightly different view of history than the rest of the world. Are there plans for that in Flagler schools, and how would it be used? Would it be used to teach, or just as an alternative opinion, which is really meaningless? If there are plans for allowing students to take the classical learning test, or classic learning test, are there going to be any cautions to the students by saying that no public or private school not religiously affiliated outside the state of Florida will accept that? I doubt it very, very much. Now, maybe schools don't care one way or another, but I doubt there are going to be too many of those who are going to look at a classical learning test and say, oh yeah, this person certainly could go to Princeton or New York University or something like that. No, that's not going to happen. The second thing, again, is on the history. If the films are being used as an alternative, that's one thing. People can choose for themselves. Young people can choose as to what. But is there going to be any, on the real history side, an opportunity to say, well, you got to think about this. For example, slavery was not a learning experience for the black community. Things like that, which PragerU apparently is perfectly willing to try to convince our students. So these are my concerns about education. Remembering once again that these students are the ones who are going to take over from us. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to take over from us. And maybe I won't be here to see it, but I certainly have a granddaughter and 2 daughters who will be here to see it. I don't want these students to take over and run the country ably. And to do that, you need a good education. And I'm a little bit concerned that in at least the southern states right now, in particular Florida, I'm no longer convinced that students are going to be allowed to get a good education unless some of the stuff that's going on right now will be stopped. And one last thing in favor of the Flagler Youth Orchestra. Again, I spoke about it before. I'm really concerned concerned that the Flagler Youth Orchestra will not be reliably led unless we make that happen. It's up to this board to make sure that the Flagler Youth Orchestra gets exactly what it needs to be the Flagler Youth Orchestra, the thing that we've all come to depend upon. So I'm hoping that you'll give consideration to making sure it does have that leadership. Thank you.
Just a reminder for public comment, we won't respond, but there are people around this room that are taking notes, and they would be more than happy to get back to you with certain responses, in a realistic time frame when they can, okay? Ms. Daisy, have a seat.
Good evening. Madam Chair and Board Member. I'd just like to ask a question. I know that I have a quarterly Governor's Board meetings coming up Thursday. And I know it's supposed to be discussing the ILA. Is there any way that I can get a copy or a rough draft? I just have to wait till the meeting? You can't answer.
We can't answer, but there's somebody here that will, Mr. Freeman will get with you and explain what.
Okay, all right, that's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue. All right, we're going to jump down now to academic services, out-of-state overnight travel. Mr. Reeves, welcome.
Ms. Harrow, board members, Superintendent Board. The travel before you is, it's not out of state, it's out of county, but just to let you know that it's an overnight trip involving 2 of our Bunnell FFA officers along with Joanna Davis and a new teacher, Maggie Reeves. And so it's before you that they're going to be overnight in Kissimmee at a chapter conference for presidents of FFA.
No, this is a great opportunity.
Oh, it's fabulous. If you never had the chance
Leadership.
Exactly. If you never had the chance or opportunity to sit on one of our meetings, it's phenomenal.
Any questions? No. Okay, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right, we're going down now to operational services, 801, the Davis Demographics. Presenter, Dave Freeman.
People that are going to join me up here.
Okay, can you introduce them?
Absolutely, I sure will.
Yeah.
All right, good afternoon, School Board, Madam Chair, Superintendent Moore. We are here to present to you the resident student forecast that was performed by Davis Demographics. Lauren Woods from Davis Demographics, MGT, is here to present that to you. He's coming from Dallas, so he's flying in from Dallas today. He brought all the heat with him from Dallas.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Not much cooler here, is it? No, it's not.
We started working on this back in February, March was when we submitted a contract to Davis, and we started working on the student enrollment piece of this, which is taking a look at 4 years past and what that data looked like, and so that they could have accurate data. And I am going to turn it over to Mr. Woods. We did make some very minor changes to this from that was posted on board docs, and we'll point those out when we get to those locations, and then we'll update the board docs with the most correct version. So, Mr. Woods.
Who's driving?
We have Nyad in the back is driving the slides.
Can you bring it back, bring it to the front, first one? Perfect. So, like David mentioned, we've started organizing with the contract earlier, and late winter. Next slide. The slide. Okay, perfect. The part of the task of this is data collection. We already had a good relationship with the district where we facilitate the student to school lookup tool, so we know where the boundaries are. We work with the county to make sure we have the correct reference data when it's time to type in an address and look to what school you're supposed to attend. But part of the task is making sure we have the correct student files. talk about that in the next slide. Oh, good. So I love the action slides, by the way. The another part of this was coordinating with staff here to make sure we had the correct planned resident housing, the active housing that's going on to help the district anticipate where the future growth areas will be from those types of developments. Then detailing and going into specific factors that are attributed to growth and decline within a district. We'll look at births. We'll look at a spatial cohort analysis, which is where kids are compared to where they were a year or two ago. And then also looking at how many kids come from a certain housing type that's currently planned. We can tell you how many houses are being built, but let's figure out how many kids we can expect from those type of houses. And then once we put it all together, we create a forecast. In your case, we're doing a 10-year forecast. It's broken down 5 and 10 years, and we'll point out different things during this process. Next slide, please. Okay, it's not a black box. We're not going to show you some mathematical equation and say, don't you understand? It's 3 things. We need to know what births have been occurring in the county. By zip code is even better, right? Because it helps us understand, because suddenly kids appear for enrollment in kindergarten. Well, they just don't suddenly appear. They either were born here 5 years earlier or other factors are occurring. So we need to know the birth factors. That helps us anticipate the pre-K and kindergarten kids that are coming in. Then we need to know what the mobility is. And the term mobility in this case, you hear it in statistics. Sometimes we think mobility from apartments. We're not talking about that. We're talking about total mobility within the existing neighborhoods of the county. And you'll see in our example of what we found, there's some areas that have inward growth occurring regardless of housing development, taking the housing development out of the equation. And it's kind of interesting. I find it interesting because I'm a nerd and I like numbers and things like that. But I'll point things out along the way, that things that are just different, that are similar that I see in other parts of Florida. And then student yields. We're looking at the student generations from housing types that are being built and what we could see in the future. This is not a housing analysis or a build-out study. That's something else. And the district has a relationship with the county GIS department where they can delve into this even further if they need to, or we can help them through that process. The numbers that you're going to see are things that are relevant to what we're trying to produce for the county. Next slide, please. Go. This is the best stuff right here. So this is the student verification. It looks like, I'm sure Dave's probably had migraines because we've went back and forth to make sure that we had the correct student counts. It's important because it's the foundation of the study. It's where the kids are, where they're enrolled, and making sure the counts are as close to what the state reported numbers are as possible. Then once we have the kids verified, we'll go in and we'll go ahead and geocode the kids. And then the middle slide is a representation of the kids geocoded. This is probably, I didn't do this one, I'm colorblind, so I can't tell, but there's probably a bunch of dots stacked on top of each other in various sizes. The larger dot are the students from 2019 and subsequent years, so 2020, 21, 22. And they get smaller as they get newer. So if you start seeing little dots in the middle of nowhere or along different roads, you're going, oh wow, those are kids that are recently appearing this past school year. Or you'll see dots that are stacked, looks like a crazy walleye. And that means that's an area where there's been kids there all along for the past 4 years. Knowing this stuff helps us with other things, other spatial analytics. Now, we do already work with your data in a way for student locator, but we also go ahead and went ahead and split your attendance zones into existing study areas. So they're the smaller neighborhood areas, or in some cases we'll split along the interstate or state routes or waterways. you'll notice that there's gonna be polygons that are smaller than others, and you see these really big ones. Well, sometimes it has to do with just there's not very many kids there. And so when you have not that many kids, the rural area, you're gonna leave the polygon a little bit bigger. You're gonna see some polygons going, wow, that looks interesting how it's split. Well, we try to isolate the planned housing that's happening, so they're not skewing the greater population, so that we can identify, you'll see later on in the PowerPoint, hot spots in the community where the growth and decline are. Think of, when you look at this, if you see a piece of summary information, that summary information is aggregated from these small study areas. Each study area has its own little planning summary. Next slide, please.
Can I, do
Yes,
you want
ma'am.
us to just wait till the very end?
Yes, please.
Oh.
Might have gone through this presentation.
Well, I'm never sure what workshops. I've been on one workshop where I was there for 2 hours because we'd stop and go through stuff, so.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why we do it this way.
Bingo. So the neat thing about this is we have historic data. The oldest file we had geocoded is from 2016. And working the slide, I'm gonna have to go back and forth a couple times. So let's go to the next one. I want you to kind of take a look at these hot areas. Go ahead and go back. You'll see that the densities look like they're in the same spots, don't they? Keep in mind, they do. They look like they're in the same spots, but look at Old Keynes right there next to the boundary. 2016's rather hot, and then 2022, see it's starting to cool down. And that's something that we'll point out in the summaries. And you see it start to expand to the southern part. And you all can do this on your own, just don't do it too fast. I don't want you to go into some seizure from the flashing lights or something. But this is just, we could geocode the kids, we could put points on the screen, but if we're not applying a relationship spatially, you wouldn't know that there was a ton of kids there. You kind of knew it already anecdotally as you drive around. Well, we have a lot of kids in that area. But now you have a little more perspective on that. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. Fun part about geocoding the kids to the world is that we get to see how many kids live there compared to how many kids are enrolled at a campus. This is an attendance matrix or an open enrollment report. So the columns going from top to down, columns, Belterra Elementary, there's 972 students that live in that boundary and are enrolled at their campus. And if you follow that down, it tells you where students are that are enrolled there from other zones of the district. Now, if you look from left to right, there's a total of almost 1,200 kids living in that boundary, 1171. And you can see where they're going to school, going from left to right. Pretty cool. The power of GIS allows us to look at things that spatially and start looking at things and sharing things that help ask more questions. Next part of this is, the next slide, we start looking at, okay, well, we know where they live and where they're enrolled. Let's look at what the comparison is with capacity. Because that's always an issue, right? You don't want elementary schools too busy, right? You want them at a capacity where kids aren't stepping on each other. So we start looking at this. And we have a comparison with the resident population. So for instance, Belterra, if it was just all the kids that lived there and attended their home campus, it'd be at 75% capacity. But because they enroll a few more kids, they're closer to 79% capacity. And then as you follow that line for Belterra from left to right, you'll see that there's 245 kids that come into campus, that attend that campus, and 199 that leave that zone to go somewhere else to go to school at campus. And then you have non-resident students that are kids that are not from the county attending that campus, 11 of them, with a net total transfer of 256 kids. pretty cool stuff. So all those little numbers you saw in the matrix on the first slide, that's where these start to add up. So the total capacity currently for the elementary is at 6,879 seats. That's just the pure number of the calculation of the campus capacities. Next slide, please. Same thing with the middle school matrix. Middle school matrix, Buddy Taylor. 1,200 kids live in Buddy Taylor zone and attend their home campus. 193 go to Indian Trails, and then you have the students, 20 classroom kids are going to Flagler virtual, and 190 going to Imagine School. And then we have, because it's only 2 schools, we can keep this on one slide, not give everybody headaches. There are the utilizations. Now look at Indian Trails. Indian Trails, pretty good, pretty much at capacity. You know, it's middle school. I don't know how the footprint is there. This is not a facility management task, but you all are at 95% capacity either way, basically. So if you have the kids that are returning that are no open enrollment, they just are going to their home campus, you're at 96%. And if they're left right now where they're going to open enrolled, you're at 94. Now Buddy Taylor is currently at below 77% because you have 412 students that are attending out to those other programs. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So a little less than 3,400 seats in total capacity. And then your high schools. Same idea, same formula. Things to keep in mind with this. High schools, you typically have an open enrollment program. If there's programming at a campus, you'll see that a lot more in high schools. I know when I was in, when my son was in school, he had a big open enrollment program within our home district because there was ROTC program at another campus that wasn't, they had, the Air Force was at one and the Navy was at another or something like that. And so you had these inter-district transfers at high school campuses. That's not uncommon to see that type of open enrollment. Something to keep in mind as he clicks on the action, that one of the campuses, they're going to have increased enrollment in school, increased capacity in school spring of 2025. Spring, right?
Yeah.
Approximately.
Yep.
All goes, right? And so your overall capacity is going to increase to over 5,100 seats. There it is. Oh, good.
First quarter of 25.
Yeah. Next slide, please. So we talked about factors. So that's just your student data. Getting into the weeds on that. You can imagine how these workshops, if we really wanted to, we can spend hours just doing that, and I have. Unfortunately for the trustees that were participating. But now we're talking about the factors that affect forecasted student populations. So we're talking about births in the area. And these are the zip codes that primarily fall in the county. You'll notice there's some zip codes that have very low numbers. Of course, you're not going to identify and say, okay, we're going to do a factor on that, because if you have 0 students compared to 0 students, you have no factor, right? So we try to take into account that some of the areas will need to have the district-wide factor, which is a positive in your case. In the county is seeing an increase in the birth factors, and this is something that's not common in other parts of the country because the national trend in births is a decline. We know that you hear from the CDC. There was a blip for about 6 months, but that's it. In Florida, because you have inward migration from other states, you have this elevated count that's occurring, but then also when we were talking about this early on, so you have this inward migration of Floridians too to the county. that are trying to get some respite from the other counties that they're coming from. So we'll identify that too in the cohort analysis. Next slide, please. There we go. So we looked at the last 4 years of student data. If you see green, that is a positive. Keep in mind, we're looking at each one of the neighborhoods that's been built, that's had homes in it for at least over 5 to 10 years. We're looking at those established areas, and we've excluded areas with new housing development, because that number's already being applied at a different point as new housing development, right? So we don't want to double count kids. When you look at this, the first thing that popped out to me was rimfire. Rimfire has a positive growth all the way up through into 9th grade. It tells us there's regreening, there's inward migration, just specifically to that zone. But then most of your other parts of the district are also the same. You have a few that are slight decline. Old Kings is probably the one that's a good example of an area that's the turnover is not happening as quickly as the other zones. But overall, this is if we didn't have development, we just had student bursts in the area and no development. I think I have an example, but maybe I'll show that in the final report. But an example of what it looks like if no development was happening. There's still the static population or slight incline that's happening because of those other things that are happening. External factors coming in from the area. Keep in mind, when we're doing this, we're looking at the student populations of your historic and current years. It helps us understand what are the ins and outs of the specific geography, in this case, elementary areas. And it helps us collect things that typically aren't available or aren't tracked as you would, whether it be changes in apartment complexes or the inward migration of people buying homes that it's not really collected on a smaller scale. This allows us to kind of see this. The other part of this is it helps us understand the spec development in ITT areas, people buying those lots and building on them because they've been around for decades, right? There's areas in California, there's those type of master plan communities in the Coachella Valley where you see the checkerboard of parcels. I'm going, you see it from a distance, you don't know on a map that, by the way, there's only 20 homes on that street. It's designed for 180. Same situation here is they start to fill in, it's just not on the scale of a brand new development. Next slide, please. And that's how, by the way, that's how the factors are applied. Thank you. So you have 100 elementary kids, that factor times 100 elementary kids gives you a positive figure of 104 kids the first grade year. So, another fun fact, student generation, student yields. So this is not as difficult as you think it'd be. It's just, we geocoded the kids, we know where they are in the world. So we do a definition query on a type of home and see how many kids land on that type of home. That's it. I like to remind Dave there was no algebra involved. It was just pure numbers. What the interesting thing about this was, and the term multifamily attached, I keep on saying, when I tell my office we need to get rid of that because sometimes it doesn't mean families anymore, it means multi-units, right? But in your case, it actually is higher than your regular single-family detached homes. So as you start to see these in a meeting or somebody says, hey, we have these type of homes being built, like duplexes, quadplexes, things like that, or row-style housing that's rent instead of owned. That's something to keep in mind. Hey, that's 35 students for every 100 units. This is, that's a good number for the area. What was surprising to me was, and talked to staff about this, there wasn't really a big difference between all the supply and the supply that was built the last 10 years. If you look at the numbers, it's within what, a tenth here or there. except for the apartments. The newer apartments tend not to have as many kids, which is interesting. If you turn by some, we have clients throughout the country, and they say, well, how do you know there's not going to be kids? I go, I don't see a playground.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah. So, anyway, next slide, please. All right, you can go ahead and click it till it stops. There's going to be a couple more on here. So you have a lot of housing going on. And we took into account that you had some that are planned, that are near existing development. You had some that we didn't have any phasing yet, but we know the developer's building right next door or a couple miles away. So we went ahead and made sure that something or some part of that development is being phased in over the next 5 to 10 years. Some of it's going to be phased in over 10 or 15 years, but this is a 10-year forecast. So you have almost 14,000 planned, active, or developing projects going on in the county.
14,000.
13,893. I like to round up. I'm like the dad handed down money, or taking money maybe. Disappearing 20. So some things to note: most new homes are being built right now in Bunnell and Old Kings. Keep in mind, Old Kings may not be producing as many kids right away. It's going to be maybe in years 5, 6, 7 later on. And you'll see a little. You'll see it as an outlier in our summaries.
What are the numbers in the boxes?
So best part about this, you're going to get a full report, and it's going to have a map and a table that will direct you to what that number represents, and that's a map ID.
It represents basically a development.
Correct. Yeah. And so you'll be able to. The map's going to have. So you're going to get a more of a zoomed in or a detailed one where you can actually. Oh, those are the numbers, and there's going to be a table that associates with it. Next slide, please. So, you'll hear us talk about resident student population. That's students, these are student nut counts of students that live in the county, that are part of that student file. So, Dave looked at it earlier, goes, wait a minute, that pre-K number should be about 3.1 or 3.2 or something like that. I go, no, you have 5 or 6 kids that are from outside the county attending. That's not part of these numbers. You only have 296, the snapshot. So it's good to keep that in mind when we start talking about things, about your student population. These are the kids that have chosen to enroll and live in and are in your community. Now, if you click the button, what's the housing impact? Well, the housing impacts all grade levels over the next 10 years because of phasing. You don't just have 500 homes that come in and suddenly there's 500 homes. It's 500 homes over 4 or 5 years over that student generation spread out. And then you have the impact of mobility, that cohort analysis, when we start applying that to each of the years, what does that mean? It makes that kindergarten class of this year will eventually end up being a freshman class of 1,340 students. Which you start looking at that going, wow, Lord, that's pretty cool. There'd be a couple hundred more students a year than it would have been 8, 9 years earlier. Yep, growth in the community. Not break out the fire buckets, but stuff that you can plan for. We know where it's happening. You can start planning for it ahead of the curve. And then the next slide, please. These are your total counts. So the very top line, that's the total number of your resident students. And then you had some non-resident student counts in this. In this case, there was a number this year that was greater than it was the year before or the average of the year before. So we went ahead and straight lined that across. My suggestion is in the next couple of years, this next year. Are you dying on me?
Yeah.
All right. The idea was that if that number was similar to the previous several years, we would have had and done a rate of change over the next 10. But because it seemed to be an outlier, I don't know why it increased almost 5 times. But something that we need to look at further. So we have that plus the resident students gives us the total enrollment, and that's the total enrollment. So you see a differentiator of almost 500 kids by year 10. Thank you. So this is a chart of your resident student population without the charter school kids, right? We did want to make sure that you're representing kids that are actually enrolled at a brick and mortar in your program. This chart details that and the summaries that are rolled out the next 10 years and kind of a visual aid of where you are compared to overall capacity at that point. Next slide. Again, middle school, same adjustment was made, but at this point you see that the middle school is going to be impacted in year 29. Okay.
This is one slide, the kindergarten, the pre-K to 5, and this slide we adjusted from the original slides on board docs to exclude the charter schools because we wanted to make sure we had the capacity, the total capacity is for our schools, not including the charter schools.
Apples to apples.
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that that total capacity and the forecast was without charter.
But what if they leave the charter or the charter closes?
Well, that would definitely impact where we are.
No, of course, but shouldn't we? Okay, I'm sorry. Wait, thank you. We'll get there.
Wait, there's more.
We're still there, go ahead.
So with the high school, you see that little step, that step represents the increase in spring of 25. And we're right below capacity until about year 29 again. And these are all the kids with the brand new capacity at the high school. And so it's projected to continue through year 10. Next slide, please. Good. Here are the study areas. Here are the study areas showing the total overall change. You can click it one more time. Showing the total overall change for pre-K-12 in a polygon. Red are the hot areas. Next slide, please. And the gray indicates no change. And we have 3 other ones set up in the next slide for elementary, middle, and high. And you notice there's a theme in most of these study areas. Certain parts of the district are expanding. Something to note, you see those larger polygons in the south? Eventually, I was suggesting that we probably end up splitting those off even further as the population starts to grow, so that it's not, that whole population isn't, that whole polygon is not going to be this gigantic population. It's just that it's having growth along that route right there, coming out from the neighboring county. Next slide. So, except for Old Keynes, I mentioned Old Keynes has a slight dip the next 10 years, or next 5 years. All the attendance zones have some growth projected in it. Old Keynes will pick back up after year 6 because that's when most of that development will either be complete or they're going into occupancy at that point. But you see the big 3, Bunnell, Buddy Taylor, Flagler, Palm Coast High School. And if you look at that, the light blue is for the next 5 years. So we'll say Belterra is 162. Over 10 years, it's 178. So it's going to grow about another 18 kids projected after year 5. So keep that in mind. Okay, it's not a combination of, it's the total representation of a 10-year period. So Bunnell's going to have constant growth basically. 225 in 220 in the first 5 years and about 360 in the last 5 years. Next slide, please. And you all already saw the summaries. Here's the projected forecast of resident enrollment. Remember, not. So we're looking at a total increase throughout the next 10 years.
17 from 80.
Yep. Next slide, please. Next slide. Frozen. Oh, thank you. Sorry, it's okay. You can go fire through those. So, you're going to expect to increase another 1,000 students by year 2027. Again, we've seen the figures. This is just re-establishing the idea that the district is in continued growth. A lot of the forecast development drives the new housing or the new population in the district. Though it's not totally there because you have birth statistics that are higher than normal. You have a spatial cohort that's higher, showing an inward migration, regardless of new development. So those things, your population, if there wasn't development and just that regular natural inward migration that's occurring, you're still going to have the static or increased population throughout the county. But as it's said, as told right now, your elementary enrollment should not exceed the total district capacity through the next 10 years. Now, keep in mind, these are snapshots. If something happens, if the market turns and finance changes on housing, which means people buying houses, people financing construction materials change, so changes the market. But the total middle school population and high school population could reach capacity or exceed capacity by year 2029. And that's it. Next slide. Now you can ask. Now you're ready.
I'd just like to add that, as Mr. Wood said, that this is a snapshot in time. And in July, in order for his team to get his data together, we stopped. We had to stop somewhere as we were still getting applications for developments coming in. So, I mean, it's a snapshot.
So this is as of when?
This is
mid-July.
Yeah, mid-July.
We just got one in the other day for over 400 homes.
Yeah.
So.
Surprise.
No.
No.
Not really.
No.
We see it on a daily basis, all of us. Okay, questions? Who wants to go?
I've got lots.
All right, Dr. Conklin, why don't you start? You might answer a lot of our other questions.
Okay.
Going through it.
It's hard to kind of look at, but on the slide where you have the verification.
There's a slide number on the bottom of that, if you could, do you see it on there?
Bottom right.
Is it cutting off?
We can.
Are you looking at that 3 sheet?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's like page 3.
You're perfect. We got
there
it.
it is.
We
There
got
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
Page 3. Yeah. So looking at the details, I'm just curious. What is our current total enrollment?
We are at 13,638 today. That it does not include VPK.
13,638. So on this, and I guess is this it says a fall snapshot. So this enrollment attribute details. I don't know if you can expand that one on the verification. Can you blow that up?
No, that's a static slide.
Yeah. So it says that.
This here, my verification form?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that here.
Okay, so it says that
In this,
the 15,329.
right.
Is that the total number of students that actually today, right now, live in Flagler County?
That was data from the October count, and that includes our homeschool students, that includes our charter school students. virtual, everybody. It was
Does it
15,329.
Does it include, so let me ask the question in a different way. Because I'm trying to get an idea of the number of students, regardless of where they go to school, that live in Flagler County, right? Because of choice and because of the voucher and the scholarships, and there are so many unknowns, I feel like we need to know what is the true student population in Flagler County, whether it is
Right.
virtual, whether it's homeschool, whether it's scholarship students, or whether it's
Right.
charter, or, you know, us.
So at the working group meeting in December of 22, I presented a student enrollment data sheet that I think we had shared with the board at different date, that showed that what our Flagler School October enrollment was, what the charter school enrollment was, what the whole homeschool enrollment was, and that comes up to 1539. What it did not include on this does not include the private school. And we feel, and we were using data from 21 because it's always in the rears of 1,757 students in private school. And so that gives us a total in Flagler County of 16,262 students.
Okay, so when we're looking at, like, for example, this document and some of the geocoding pieces, it is only looking at those students that are registered with Flagler County schools?
That is correct.
So when we talk about birth rates and population and zip codes, those are students that are born in those zip codes?
Those are counts.
Or are they our students that are enrolled in Flagler?
So your cohort is your students, that mobility is your students, and the birth counts are from the state.
So those are, they can go anywhere.
Correct.
They're anywhere. And so that.
But you want to have that sample, because they're not going to define it any more than, this is how many kids are there. We want to see what those rate of changes are compared to each other.
Because I think it's going to be really important for us, with now scholarships as part of the equation, to have a really good understanding of what is the total K-12, pre-K-12 population in Flagler County. Not, I understand for capacity reasons we have to look at who's actually inside of our buildings, but also for capacity reasons because folks may decide to come back and enroll, and especially with the development and the growth going on, that number, what is that number, I think is going to be important to know, right?
Right.
And you're saying right now you think it's 16,000?
16,262.
62, 16,262.
That was
December.
last December, yes, that's what the number.
It's always a snapshot.
And the Bieber report has us about how many school-age students projected for the county. About 17,000.
Yes.
Yes.
And 17,000 students is where we're sitting as a county.
We reached out to
School-age
Bieber,
students.
and they had done a projection analysis.
Okay. Because it's just, to me, that's super important for us to keep our eye on. The enrollment attendance matrix. Let me see which page that was.
Yeah, what Superintendent discussed was, we reached out to Bieber, and for the 21 estimates, the Bieber says for age 5 to 17, there are 16,190 students. In 2025, that will jump to 17,519. So.
Yes. And do they base that on birth rates, or are they basing that on construction and development?
They're basing it on census data.
So what they typically will do is they'll grab information from American PD Survey and
Right.
try to figure out what that is.
That's correct. I talked to the doctor this morning with the University of Florida, and he did cite that source.
Okay, so help me understand just a little bit more. Does it negate or not include then the obviously Flagler County has a tremendous amount of development happening.
So it's a census thing. We all know we do our 2020 and every 10 years we do that, but when we file taxes, when we do our 941s, we file our 940s, we file permits and things like that, that's tracked and audited by the IRS monthly, sometimes quarterly, depending on where you are. American Community Survey takes that snapshot of 2020, or the data that was ready in April 21, and starts applying those factors. So kind of like what we do, but they're doing it at all these different little volumes and stuff. Who's working? Because when you fill out a finance, filing your taxes and stuff, you tell them how many people are working for you.
Similar process, different data.
Yeah.
Because what he did was he knows where the kids live.
They don't.
Point it on a geo fence and then take it from there.
Right, but that number doesn't really take into account, or am I wrong, take into account development and future development?
It does in the way that they do get reported permits from the county.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just how they apply it is different. And there's a whole white paper on, it's thrilling. Need to go to bed early. But there's a whole white paper on it. And also there are tools used within GIS that allow you to look at non-census related geographies, and there's a tool that allows you to look at certain attendance areas and see what the total populations are based off of the census algorithm.
Okay.
But so what you want to do is you want to do what's called a market share analysis, and that's something that can be done. If you're going to do it, you would do it at each one of the zone levels, the zones in the middle school and the high school. That way you can then look and see what are your areas that you're missing kids. When I used to work with youth sports and coaching, I would look for the under participated areas. Everybody goes to have the map guy look at that, because it's one thing to have the affluent areas involved, it's another thing to have kids that don't have the money. We need to know where we can sign up kids and get them in and let them play too. That's basically what we're doing here, is we need to figure out where are we missing them. And so if we get down to the smaller geographies, then we can start identifying areas a little bit better. It's not going to be, scientifically it makes sense. It may not be exact, but at least it gives you that. We're missing 1,000 kids.
Yes.
Okay, where are they?
Okay. On the attendance matrix page, I think page 7. So these numbers, when you say counts of students living in the attendance area, does that include homeschool and private?
It does right now.
Okay, so the count in that area includes homeschool and private school students.
The kids that are part of your reported numbers that were shared to us, the numbers that were shared to us in the student file, that's what's included in there right now.
In the living in attendance area.
Correct.
So it would be private school students, or
Well,
no?
whatever they're enrolled in. So you see that there's five schools of enrollment. So that's the population of that sample.
It would not include homeschool students. We did not.
Or private.
Or private school, because we didn't have that on this sheet. We didn't have private school data to include. We did have homeschool data, but we elected not to include that. But it will include charter school data.
Should we not include private school information?
We don't have private school information.
We can't get it.
We
don't know wouldn't we know the number of students that are taking the scholarship?
We know the number of students that are taking scholarship, which is I think around 600. Last year we had about 600 students that were taking scholarship.
691. Last year or this? Last year 691.
Yes.
Close to 700.
Before we move off of this slide, may I ask a question? Okay. This is a pain point for me, to be honest. My family and I live on Wellington Drive. We pass Wadsworth Elementary constantly, but we are zoned for rimfire. So we drive past Wadsworth another 2.5 miles, multiple minutes, to go from what feels like our neighborhood elementary school to go to where we're zoned. And so what I keep getting hung up on is, as you talk about where the kids are, I'm thinking, well, my kid's here, but she's zoned for over here. So now none of your numbers then mean anything to me, because it's kind of like Flagler Schools is, and I wasn't here during this time, right, where maybe some of these decisions were made. I wasn't here when the decision was made to take students from 6th grade and move them over to the middle school. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that that's really my hang up right now, is I don't know what these numbers mean, because Wadsworth is sitting at 743, but I know that doesn't include, that would never include my kid, even though she lives right there. So,
but if we were looking at this, and you're talking about Rimfire, the zone school, we have, of Rimfire, we have 113 students that live in the Rimfire zone that attend Wadsworth. Is that what that is saying?
Yeah.
So your child, if your child elected to go to Wadsworth, which feels more like your home zone school, your child would be captured in the 113. That
right,
are
we would
in the,
have to go through the process
Yes.
of applying for school choice,
Right.
even though it's literally at the end of our street. So that's a whole nother separate conversation. That's just something, as we talk about planning for the future, I know I would welcome that conversation of, I get it, there's only so many buildings, and there are people from Marineland who are having to, you know what I mean? We don't necessarily have a school next to everybody's home. But I just think that that's something that should be brought into the mix as we are talking about 5-10 years, is hopefully students attending, when possible, their neighborhood school. So thank you. While we were on that slide, I just wanted to, I don't really understand what's happening with that. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Yep. The next slide, please. So when we are talking about students in and out, and you're saying resident students, again, I guess kind of the same question.
Kids that live in and are enrolled at,
Okay,
yeah.
so it
And
doesn't
so
include.
This is our inter-district stuff that's going on right now with kids that are going to Wadsworth, that are supposed, or they're going to Rimfire, that could go to Wadsworth or vice versa, things like that.
Is there a way when we're looking at resident students to include the students who are homeschool students, charter school students, private school students in those resident areas?
If I had the data for the private school students, which we could do that, we could populate them
Yeah.
on a map, but I don't
We just don't
have
have
the
the data.
private school.
Yeah, that's the question.
So the
Yeah.
only
How
private
can we
school
get
student information we have are students who
Scholarship.
leave us and go.
yes.
Scholarship.
Or, because that's not a requirement anymore.
Yes.
They don't have to have been here and then leave, right,
No,
Penny?
but if they take a scholarship, that would be the telltale sign.
And when they take a scholarship, we know where they go?
Not always.
Necessarily, no.
No,
It's
we
just
don't
private
always
school.
Because
know.
that's controlled at the state level.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't always know where they go. We
No.
know that 691 were last year. Right now, we have about 800 students that are scholarship students this year.
Okay. And then on this slide, and this may be something for leadership to consider, it would be very interesting to me when we look at students out. For example, if you look at the large percent of students out of Rimfire and Bunnell, do we do any kind of exit interviews with families when they're choosing to leave a school to go somewhere else, to kind of try to get to the root cause of why those numbers are what they are?
We did not. Going forward, even as early as today, we had conversation around how are we tracking students that are choosing to go other places, especially as we look at voucher system, and how do we stay connected to those families so that they know all the different options that are still available to them without just being a full-time student in our traditional brick and mortar student school.
Just be
So we did
really-
not have that in place, but
Yeah.
it is things that we're looking at right now.
It would be interesting when parents and students are opting out to go somewhere else to find out why
Yep.
and see if there's any trends
Right.
there.
And we have some of that captured in through our choice process, you know, as they're choosing to go other places, but not to what you said.
Is utilization and capacity the same thing? And here's
Yeah.
why I'm asking the question, because I could be wrong, but I always thought that Old Kings was pretty much at capacity. And I'm surprised when I look at the utilization here, that the utilization rate is so low. When we're looking at capacity reports, the capacity, especially like at Old Kings, and I think Wadsworth was one, but the capacity was always high. I always thought Old Kings was at capacity and did not have availability for choice. And so I'm just trying to figure out what is the difference between what we have come to know as capacity and the utilization rate. Does my question make sense?
It does. Our Old Kings, we do have some portables there that have
Right.
increased the capacity. And from our October numbers, and we're only using we do only October every year, we were showing, you know, close to 1,993. And then our school capacity there was 1,290.
And remember, once sixth grade was
Yeah.
removed and moved back to middle school, that did open up.
opened
So
up.
that's it,
Oh,
that's
and-
the
absolutely.
change,
and
that's the
open.
That was the
change.
purpose.
Yeah.
So there's,
Absolutely.
that's what it
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
So moving sixth grade to
Opened all that capacity.
capacity our elementary schools.
That was its goal.
No,
Right.
forgot about that.
Yep.
Uh, Oh, the forecasted 9/12, it's different on our board docs, so we might just wanna update that presentation with the presentation that's in board docs.
What number
The,
was that?
The one that had the line.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, the red one.
Page 19.
Yep.
In ours, it's, so the board docs needs the updated one.
Yep. Yeah,
Yes,
just-
that's the one that we just changed, and we will make sure that's updated. And you had asked about, if you could go up one slide to the middle school bar graph, Naya, just one. You had asked about the capacity and with charter schools. Since we have a total capacity of what our brick and mortar schools are, and I can't manage what the charter schools' capacity is, we wanted to make sure we were showing apples to apples here with what our forecasted capacity is for our schools. That's why we adjusted it without the charter schools. But the charts before this, chart number 16, chart 17, that includes charter school.
I think it just becomes confusing for the public. When
It does.
some charts have charter schools,
Yeah, I mean,
populations in, and others don't.
So this was, we had to do some adjustments on the fly, and so this is a draft.
Okay,
There's
So
good,
we'll correct it.
yeah, so there's more moment is we're gonna have a full report written on this.
okay.
if we go to this, and if I adjusted with charter school, I mean, I'd have to adjust my total capacity up. And what was my capacity of the charter school? I mean, is it just what their
Yeah.
enrollment is, or,
Well, I'm sure their capacity is listed, just as our capacity is listed,
right?
right? But, and then the last question I had was on mobility, I'm sorry. For the mobility rates. Is this based on unique students?
So it's how many students were in this one area compared to the following year. It's looking at grade by grade. How many kindergartner kids were there compared to the following year, and then looking at the differences between how many were compared to the first graders the following year. And so there's 3 years of change occurring.
So here's the wondering that I had, right, when I looked at this. So look at Rimfire, for example, right, because you had mentioned Rimfire.
Yeah.
It looks like the mobility rate is good.
Positive.
Positive, right? But then when you look at the number of students transferring out, it's the highest among the district.
Now remember, this is where they live. Doesn't matter where they're enrolled. This is kids that are living here.
But that was exactly my point, and this is where I'm getting hung up, is I feel like you guys keep saying this is where they live, and I'm saying that's not where they live, because my daughter is one example, and maybe I'm just not understanding this, but my daughter is one example, is she doesn't live within 4 miles of Rimfire, right? She lives within 2 miles of Wadsworth. So this is why I just kind of keep getting hung up. That happens to be one board member's daughter.
Well, where would she be counted?
Wherever
daughter.
wherever the address geography falls,
So she would be counted.
Where she lives.
where she lives.
Which
So-
is right next to Wadsworth. But
So
she's
you would-
zoned
so
for
you'd be-
Rimfire.
So her daughter would be counted in the Wadsworth numbers.
Correct. We're looking. It doesn't matter
For
where
residents.
It doesn't matter where they're enrolled. We want to see what the nuances are of the neighborhood.
Because it's our decision, right? So you guys are just saying, here's where the kids are. But
Correct.
it was a previous school board who decided that my daughter is zoned at Rimfire, not at Wadsworth.
There were reasons, if I recall, because of the rezoning,
But if you
that
look,
we needed to change some,
If you look at
because of
number-
transportation issues.
slide
Remember
5.
that?
And if you look at slide 5 and slide 6, so it shows all of our schools, their zones. So they're capturing where the kids reside in relation to where they're supposed to go to, they're going to school. So if you reside in Wadsworth, but you're going to Rimfire or vice versa, you would be in the total, this is how many students live in this area, but here are the number of students that are leaving Rimfire going to Wadsworth.
Now is that totality in terms of whether they're zoned there or not? Does that include both school choice and they've just been zoned out of their area?
Yes, anyone that
So this
lives
is where
in the
like the numbers
Rimfire.
just get wonky for me.
If we go back and look at where it says, I think it's slide 7.
Yes, I know,
Yes.
that's what I was just gonna say.
Right there.
That might help.
Yes,
That's the main.
it tells you that for Rimfire, you have 1,200 students living in that area. 759 of those students actually go to Rimfire. The rest of them go somewhere else, with 113 of them going to Wadsworth. So maybe what we look at is, of those 113, if we look at where do they live? Do they live in the zone where where you live, and those families are really just electing to walk to Wadsworth or whatever, but that's where it's captured. 1,200 live in that zone, 759 actually go to that school.
Yeah, and I think that was just the point, Superintendent Moore, I was trying to bring up earlier. As we discuss all of this, I mean, what I'd love to do is, what is the 3-mile radius of each school, and can we accommodate those students in that area now in those schools? I would love for that to be a part of this larger conversation.
When we had conversations around moving 6th grade back,
That's what happened.
Exactly.
it
It was
was
a
a conversation
transportation
around
issue.
rezoning elementary school, and our community and our board was not interested in moving forward with that at that time.
The problem is the 3 miles, they
Yeah.
overlap.
Go back to the density map, please.
That's what we ran.
Well, they don't, so if they overlap, I mean, my daughter, and again, I'm talking about, I just happen to be a board member, we are about 4+ miles away from Rimfire.
So take a look at just the sheer geography of those two attendance areas. They're the smallest and most densely populated.
Yeah.
Of course, there's going to be neighborhoods cut off.
Right.
It's physically impossible not to see the school in some cases. It's
And
flat.
Yes, and the capacity of the 2 different schools. You have Rimfire where can accommodate how many students versus Wadsworth that is maybe, that is a fraction of that,
Yeah.
if not half.
Right, but it was done because of transportation needs. We needed to figure out.
That was a
how to balance
factor
it.
that.
Transportation
It was a
as
major
well as
factor when
capacity of the
Because we had to
building.
loop that group in at that time.
Well, I will just throw this out, because this was just brought up a few minutes ago. As you talk about why parents may not send their kids to Flagler schools, that might be something where we are missing out on students because they're not zoned to their neighborhood school, right? So I just think that is something, when we talk about the everyday life of our families, for 5 board members to just, without really, to make decisions without really thinking about the everyday life of our families. I mean, I just think going forward, let's try to accommodate as many people.
That's kind of
That-
unfair
that is,
because
because-
it's really unfair. We held
Choice.
multiple town hall meetings. We gathered multiple input from everybody in the world. The truth is, when you rezone, it is absolutely impossible to make everybody happy. It's not gonna
Oh,
happen.
I'm sure of it.
So
I'm
all
just
of
sure.
those things were taken into effect. The problem that we have in Flagler County is we have schools that are actually
In the same area.
very closely located.
Yeah.
So you gotta draw the line somewhere. But it's open enrollment, it's choice. So
Choice.
parents can take their kids, they can go to any
Anywhere,
school.
any of our elementary
And it
schools.
looks like we have capacity. at
Well, that's
all.
why we did
Now.
it.
We do have
Now we
capacity.
do,
We
right.
did, but
So if
we
you
do now.
wanted to go, which one was the neighborhood school for you?
Wadsworth, which
So if you
which
wanted-
closes at some point, right, to open
Well, no, there's tons of capacity.
No, there's kind of, now
But
there's capacity.
currently.
There's a lot, there will be.
Yeah, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to go to Wadsworth, you could do that under open enrollment.
Right, so that was that was the piece that we sold, because the public, we let them know what was gonna be changed, and then they had the option of choice. And we sold that at that time because we wanted the people to know, we need to draw this line, and we have choice available. If you don't wanna go to Rimfire, choose Wadsworth, and we gave them that option. So.
I guess I'm just not as big on
There was an
forcing families to go through the process of school choice when we can just, all I'm asking is, when we are talking about a 5 to 10 year look at where we're building schools, smaller schools, bigger schools, is Rimfire now a middle school? As we're just looking at all of these things, my ask is that we look again at the attendance zones to see if there's anywhere we can make improvements. And a little fire was lit under me from the email we all received about ITMS, and the family, according to the email, if I'm understanding it correctly, who wasn't notified that they now were not included in the ITMS.
That was, we checked into that.
Bus
and
schedule.
Corrected, because and it was like, did me too. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
And
You know, it
taking
was
the
a-
address from the gate as
Yeah,
opposed to the building.
it was corrected.
It was corrected, they were wrong, they're fine.
So
We-
we've been fixed. But when I
Absolutely.
saw that, I was like, oh, like where all do we have families similar to mine where we're going, hey,
Yeah, that situation
I'm
was
just asking that
completely
we
addressed.
include it in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we're gonna have to do this again down the road, because we need to build schools. And we thought originally we needed to build a high school, but we don't. We need to get a middle school first, then the high school. So by this.
And the question is the size.
Exactly.
I'm not sure that's.
Well, not build necessarily.
That's the case. I mean, it still looks like
That's
they're
close.
both right at,
They're right there.
almost
Yeah,
at the
they're
same
close,
time.
right. But
So,
it'd be cheaper to build a middle school, to perhaps move a middle school, and build an elementary.
Or we build something smaller.
Yeah.
or we change we might not need to build a high school that's the same size as FPC. Maybe it's a smaller school
Correct.
that can expand wing by wing as students move
Mechanical,
in.
yeah.
or-
Like
You could phase it in just like developers do. I mean,
Yeah.
the idea is this report reveals some pretty interesting policy choices that, are in front of the board, and we look forward to your guidance, because that's the question is, it's not that we're not going to have to build schools in the future. The data clearly shows that we are. The question is, what is the size and where they're gonna be?
Yeah. No.
Have we, I'm sure you guys all have, but have we gone back and looked at the previous projections and kind of where they've landed? Are
Dave
they
has.
way off? Were they
Dave has.
fairly close? That
Yeah,
kind of thing?
I did look at it today, and this projection is a little bit showing more growth than the last projection. You remember the last projection was from 2019, which was pre-COVID, which basically said that we were flat. So this projection is showing some growth, but it's at a moderate
Sure.
level, like we don't have our hair on fire like St. John's.
That's good.
It's just odd to me with all of the development and building that it says.
It's a lot, there's a lot going on, and Dave mentioned 2019 was showing flat. Remember during COVID what happened? You had lockdowns, people were isolating. Also, you saw this movement from other parts of the country that started picking up, started seeing people that were from and more dense suburban, urban areas moving to the county districts. And so that's where you started seeing a lot of this. You see it in Florida, you see it in Texas, you see it in the Carolinas. It wasn't just from inward migration.
Right.
You had the movement with Floridians, again, going back to people of the area moving into these areas.
It's just that when I hear we have developments coming on board of 400
Yeah.
homes, we've got massive development going on, you know, apartment complexes in
Yeah.
Flagler Beach. We've got down John Anderson. I mean, the building that is happening right now and the multifamily building that is happening right now, it's hard for me to just comprehend that we're not
It's a different,
growing more.
it's a different, so yields have been in decline for the last 5 or 6 years. Dave knows this. I'll talk at state agencies and give presentations just on this subject. But think about the generational differences now, and the market that's buying existing and new homes. It's not me. I bought my house. I'm done. My kids, my son's getting married at age 36. He's not having kids. My daughter's 25. She's not going to have kids.
It's true.
So now we're looking at these are the two next markets, right? My son's a millennial, older millennial. My daughter's Gen Z. Available to buy houses. Son bought a house, nice big house. 4-bedroom. Used to be the family house. One's his gaming room, one's his office.
Right.
Another one's the workout room. Because he works virtually, he can do it wherever he wants. So he, for some reason, is in Minnesota of all places doing this.
So it's different. Yeah.
It's different. So we're looking at, if you go on, and this is something you can Google, National Realtors will tell you what the market share is now. The last time I did the presentation, it was 47% made up of existing and new homes were being bought by either millennial or Gen Z. The next group of significance, professional women over 40 unmarried buying. It was significant enough that they said it was like a 5 or 6% figure.
Wow.
So now you went from 47 of this generation to another population. And you're going, okay, so now over 50% of the homes are without children. This is not, you know, I'm an echo boomer. I'm a Gen X. We were the ones that caused the issues of rapid building and things. And, you know.
But you go back to slide 14, which shows the residential development. Again, this is a snapshot in time. We had to cut off at some point in time.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well,
next year it might look a little bit different.
Totally different.
Look at Bedell.
And it takes 5 and 6 and 7 years for the infrastructure
Sure.
and everything to come in and get
But
that
look
all
where the
set.
growth is. You got that, and William pointed out earlier. It reminds me, you know, we're getting booked in by some pretty big counties or growth-wise counties. Well, geez Louise, look at that southeast corner of the county there. What do we see? We got like 7 or 8 projects.
It's Volusia.
Yes.
Yeah.
We work with Clay County. Clay County is just blowing up on that north side where it abuts Duval. Going, and then I was telling Dave, they're announcing that the expressway is going to complete in Middleton or Middleburg in 18 months, which just leads in. It's going to continue heading south. It may, I don't know what the direct line is, but it may. I think it's going to straddle the county line once it gets past out of the county there. But anyway, it's a domino of things that are going to happen, and this is just a snapshot. This is something that's going to have to these guys here are just going to have to keep on chugging away at looking at finding isolating outliers if something pops up, but at least you all have a roadmap.
I have an idea. Is there any more questions?
I'm just curious, is there any way to predict an exodus, like recession or the insurance companies leaving Florida? Does that play a role, or we just have to kind of see how it goes year to year?
So there's no economic indicator other than your student population. The student population represents a bunch of different things. It represents the inward movement of people. So that's the only thing. There's not an economic indicator as part of this. But yeah, that's a good point. So you have the insurance companies pulling out. Well, okay, that's California and Florida and anything that has been a natural disaster occurring. And Hawaii's next.
Okay.
I have a question. On slide 18 for forecasted residential students 6 through 8. Okay, well yours actually looks different than mine here.
Yeah, these have been updated right before I
Okay,
came in.
gotcha, because it was showing a up to 25 of capacity, but that is now, you straightened that line out, so I don't have a question there.
It looked wonky, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, it wasn't me.
Yeah, it just got, you saw-
Yes,
so I
yes.
was like, why did we have more
Okay.
capacity in there? Okay.
Okay,
gotcha.
good. I thought it was me. I was looking at it on my phone too, and I thought it was
Yeah,
off.
okay, so that's clear. And then the other thing, just going to slide, page 22, projected net change in each attended zone. So just to better understand what's happening in Old King, so are you saying basically, is this kind of like, because it's projected that the attendance will go down. So is that because of basically empty nesters that are staying put and there aren't new?
You don't have the turnover in the next 5 years, but you do have development that's in there that's going to offset it.
Yeah, you have
Okay.
new inventory coming in, but he's looking at what's there.
What he has today?
Yes, sir.
Because I know there's a project
That's right,
down
go
off of 100 with over 700 plus and
You got
another
it.
one. So I mean, that
Yeah.
could quickly flip the other
Exactly.
direction. Okay.
Yeah.
And you all, and I was just checking, you all probably got us some outline, some charts of each specific attendance area. And so when you look at, it's not part of this, but if you get that, you'll see that, and it's going to be in the report detailed, but you'll see that there's in Old Kings, that it's aging out for a period of time and then picking back up. That's what's happening.
So do we receive updates on this information automatically, or do we have to request another study be done if we want these updated numbers, say, next year?
Right, this is a snapshot in time.
Okay. And do we have access to any kind of real-time data that we can access to supplement this if we need to get some of these incremental numbers that might not justify doing a whole study, but could we could see, we know we've approved all these projects, they're broken ground. We have a benchmark in time here, and we can kind of look at some of that forecast.
Right, that's something that we did with our previous planner, that she was working with Davis to do those forecasts, and we are looking at a system to do that, either continuing with Davis or with another software, so,
Okay.
yes. Patty, yep.
Anybody else?
The corresponding report with that one slide, you had all the numbers. Is there a report that goes along with that?
You're going to have it's, so what I had a board member refer to it as the cookbook of demographic study. It's going to walk you through each part.
Excellent, okay.
Yeah.
What's
So
the time
if you
frame?
need to go to sleep,
Yeah.
perfect.
What's the time frame?
It's going to be about 4 to 5 weeks
That's
because
fine.
we have to redo some things and
I know you brought it up before, and I just want to verify. I'm always concerned about the extra lots IT&T has
Yeah.
been developing at an unbelievable rate. Even in my own neighborhood, we have like 5 on my street,
Yeah.
and they're all bringing kids.
Yeah.
They're not, where are we, how's that?
There was 45,000 ITT lots,
Yes.
according to the staff in Palm Coast that they can track.
Yeah,
There's only 9,500 left.
yeah, okay.
So that, it's about,
But how many decades has that been?
yeah, it's been several
It's been-
decades,
yeah,
and it just
yes.
depends on
Yeah.
a lot of
But
factors.
they're
as to-
selling like hotcakes, and they're being developed like hotcakes.
Yeah.
And they're bringing kids, and that's something we can't forget about those homes.
So think
because
about-
that's gonna make a big difference.
Think about the bringing kids in.
Yes.
Remember, they're showing up, and so we see them in the records, and that's what's being picked up. The
Okay.
ITT lots are not excluded from the mobility calculation
Okay.
because they're
But
not.
that's the key,
Yeah.
they've gotta be in there.
Yeah.
Because, yes, and then
That's a good point.
Okay. Anything else? Yes.
You
Chair,
wanna go ahead?
could you put up the second slide for the agenda for the oversight meeting, and if you don't mind staying here? I just wanted to let the board be aware that next week we have our oversight committee meeting. That is on Thursday, and that'll be in this room, and 3 of the board members, Ms. Massaro, Dr. Conklin, and Ms. Hunt, you were on that committee. This is the agenda. that we will be going over at that meeting. We will use these slides from the Davis demographics as part of that, and then some additional slides. Mr. Whitson would like to coordinate with each of you and do some one-on-ones before that meeting. We are making sure that the slides are sent out and the data is sent out to the municipalities in advance of this meeting, so they will have the read ahead, and we'll send that out to all board members.
Everything
Yeah,
you've
at 1
gotten.
o'clock, right?
Yes,
It
ma'am.
is at
Everything
1
you've
o'clock.
gotten, we've sent to our intergovernmental partners, and we will try to keep them updated, and there'll be a background information package with this agenda going out in the next few days.
Okay.
That's very good. I'm just making sure.
I want to make sure when we questions and questions at that event, make sure if something needs to be, because we can add answers and more detail to the report.
Okay.
So that means, it's just nice when you all ask questions, so that gives us some other things to focus in on. Instead of just putting it into a report, we can add details that were asked.
Well, I'd like to thank the three of you, especially Mr. Woods, for coming here and explaining all this and trying to make some sense of our growth, because we know we're here.
Yeah.
And
It's
we
a lot of
want to do
moving
the best we
parts.
can, and the information is very valuable.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We enjoy working with y'all, and just thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Very
Thanks,
informative.
Mark.
All right. We are now going to go down to item 11, which is school board attorney information. 1101 is superintendent search survey. This is Miss Gavin first, I believe.
Would it be okay if I excuse myself from the table? I won't provide any input into the
I think
conversation.
that's appropriate.
That'd be
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
Give you time to do lots of other things.
I'm gonna stay in, but.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I'd also like to invite,
Bring our representatives.
with me today is Mr. Vogel and Mr. Reichert.
Welcome back.
FSBA.
Thank you.
And before we get started,
Sure, absolutely.
I had reviewed, I'm hoping most of you have reviewed this information, looking at leadership qualities, the different things that we will be discussing shortly. But I would be very disappointed in myself if I didn't put this out to the table for us to discuss openly. And my discussion is, and what I'm asking you all to consider and talk about right here and now, is the possibility of foregoing all of this and moving Ms. Moore as our superintendent. She's had a 2.5-month interview, on-the-job interview. I believe that our district is moving forward, which we need to be. I know she has a lot of support from the schools. We've seen her in various situations. And as I look at this, and I look at culture and the learning environment, and I went, all the way through, I said, wow, we already have somebody that could handle all this and move along the district in the direction it needs to go. And she's doing it somewhat at a disadvantage. Now, I haven't talked to her. I don't know if she's going to even apply. But I would wonder if it's just something that we might be able to, I know these gentlemen are here to go forward, and we may go forward. But I certainly would like to talk to the group and get your feedback, because it can save the district a lot of time and a lot of money, that we know where we stand, and yet we would still be led in a good direction, and it would keep us going that way. Instead of hiring somebody, I don't know if the person is out there. There's no perfect person out there. They're not out there. Okay? However, there could be somebody that might be a little better on paper, but it's a risk that we're all going to take, and we don't know how it's going to be when they actually get here, and they set us backwards. Every experience I've had through 5 different superintendents takes us backwards. And personally, professionally, I'm tired of going backwards. We're moving. We're going the right way. We have a good base. We have somebody that's leading us. And I think that they would do a wonderful job. And perhaps we could make some kind of compromise with our contract if we decide to go that way that would be acceptable. I don't know. These are all things we could talk about. But I do want to talk about it, and I'm going to put it on the floor, and I apologize, gentlemen. Let's have this conversation.
I think that they could probably answer some questions if the board has any with respect to their experience, because this is what they do, is they perform these searches, and they could perhaps provide some insight into how many times districts that started out with searches ended the search because they believed they already had someone, and or whether or not how many times going through the entire search it has ended up being interim superintendent and or someone from within. So I think they might be able to provide some insight,
Maybe we'd start as a good place to start there, because you have experience of actually working with districts, hiring school superintendents. What I hope, wouldn't happen is we go through this whole process and end up right where we are right now. And it's very possible. I don't even know it yet, but it is possible. So what has happened, or what is your thoughts, Samin?
Sure. We were in one district at a point in the search, just like we are right now, and one of the board members brought it up, just like you're bringing it up right now. They had an interim superintendent there, and they said, that talked to the board members, and the board members said, well, yes, the interim was in place for several months. Everything was going very well, and they said, we're just going to go ahead and continue the interim, and the interim superintendent had a very successful run there and retired from the district. There have been several searches where the board hired interims and then just continued the interim also. And we've been involved in some of those also. We've gone before the board and worked with the interim. So it's not uncommon, and I think you bring up a good point. If you've worked with someone for a period of time, you have insight into the job they're doing, and sometimes it's a good decision for the board. I don't recall, John, any situations that have really not been successful.
No, because I recall, again, it's a matter of record, Polk County, we were at 2 or 3 meetings. Right. Polk County decided to go with their interim. I don't recall if they suspended the search, or actually, I think they suspended the search until they had discussions with the interim to look at a contract development, and that was successful. And then at that point, they, I think, officially maybe terminated the search. But I recall them, and I don't recall several years ago with Brevard, they did the same thing in suspending the search, because we were 2 or 3, maybe a month or a month and a half, similar to this, into that process. So I just don't recall if they suspended the search pending, because you certainly it would have to come back at a regular board meeting for y'all to take that action, which is fine. Or if they terminated the search, it might have been a suspension until the decision was made, then there was a termination, or to reactivate the search.
And that's one thing about us. Our goal is to ensure that the board is satisfied, and if that's the decision the board makes, we're fine, and we support the boards throughout the process if that's the decision they make. In any way we can help.
Well, I've got a quick question.
Well, before we go, there'll be lots of questions, I'm sure, and lots of conversation. All that I want to say is I just would like to discuss this, and whatever this board decides, I'm 100% behind it. If you decide to stick with this, fine. If you decide to continue through this process, which is coming, fine. I mean, either way, but I do believe we should have a little conversation. Absolutely. Sally.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there's, I don't know if you want to call it a hybrid, but I've said all along I'm looking at superintendent more if she's open to applying as someone I hope will apply to consider. I'm not in favor of just voting and saying she's our new superintendent. What I would be in favor of, if this is a possible process, is expediting her process. So I have questions that I would want to ask anybody we would consider, and I would be open to superintendent more, us going through that with her now, right? And then that would, I think, do a really kind of a nice thing in terms of her just knowing yes or no, right? Like we're gonna, or like, or no. So I don't know if that's possible with, if that makes any sense, if that's possible with the process.
It makes sense to me, I get it, because I'm sure each of us would have some things we'd like to sort out in our own heads.
So she's in the room. Are we allowed to just
I'm
even?
sorry, I didn't even, she was
No,
in the
no,
room.
no, she just walked
I
in.
thought you left.
I did, I just walked back in, so.
We're talking about you, so we might as well, we're talking about if you are open to being the superintendent, and if we potentially expedited that process of interviewing, if that's something that you would be interested in participating in.
If this board feels that we could do collaborative work together and do great work for our community, then absolutely, I would be interested in that. But if I'm not the candidate and it's someone else, I respect that decision as well. I just want to do good work for students and for this community, so.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that?
Put you on the spot like that, but thank you.
I mean, I'm open to that personally. Here's what my suggestion would be, because it's kind of like, this is, you kind of just brought up this idea today. And I think this is something that is a very big decision, and I think we need to have more time on this to talk as a board, but it should be very quickly, not drawn out. But I'm thinking that it might be prudent for us to have either an executive session or just a special meeting that we could really sit down and talk, and then make a decision if that's the direction we want to go. And then if we do, then we would have time to individually have interviews with Ms. Moore going forward. Because right now we have them here today to talk about what we were already planning to do. So if that tends to be the direction we're going to go, we shouldn't lose time with this conversation here today, right? I just don't know if there's enough time for us to all have that conversation here in today's workshop period of time.
Well, I just want to
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought it up, because I wasn't sure how we'd go about that, if we're jumping the process or whatever, but in a way we've been interviewing her already. Some of us have been following her through the campuses and seeing the start of the year, and there's great energy across our campuses, so I mean I could say that, so she definitely needs to be considered, and yeah, we need to talk about, do we suspend that or how we go about this.
Wait, Dr. Conklin would like to speak, and we'll go with you. I would, it's not uncommon, it really isn't. I mean, we've done that before. At the course of a board meeting, a motion was made, and for example, Bill Delbrug was a high school principal, and we made the motion to make him superintendent, and he was one of the best superintendents we've ever had in Flagler County. I would support suspending this whole process, saving the money, the time and the energy and the focus, and I would very seriously consider a motion to make LaShaka the superintendent and move forward. What I saw at the kickoff was an energy that I have not seen in this district in years. The buy-in from our teachers to our custodial staff to our administrative staff to our directors to transportation, food service, literally every department, the energy was positive. There were very difficult messages she had to deliver that day. It was done in a very, very professional, matter-of-fact kind of manner. She included all of us in that opportunity, and I just think, she'd be a great superintendent. And it is very unsettling or unnerving for everybody else. You know, what's going to happen? How's this going to go? gonna be a brand new person that's gonna come in and everything is gonna change, because the reality is when you get a new leader in, it's their purview, right? And so it makes everybody start questioning their place on the team. I think that she's done a great job stepping in. She did a great job as assistant superintendent. So I'm a little, like, kind of like Will, I'm a little like, kind of taken back. I didn't think we were gonna have this conversation today. But since we're having it,
Yes.
I would say I would support moving forward and let's just get it done.
All right.
I would agree with you 100% on that. Kickoff was amazing.
Phenomenal.
The energy in the room, the response from the entire district was overwhelmingly positive. I had the privilege of walking the first day of school, and that was just, I can't even describe what that was like, to visit every building and every campus, and the interaction with Ms. Moore and her past students and with the teachers, and it was great. And so, I mean, overwhelmingly from that side of it, I think we're all in agreement with that connection with the team and Ms. Moore. But if I'm just trying to say from my role here as school board member, when I interviewed Ms. Moore to be the interim superintendent, I felt she was more than qualified to be in that role, right? But that interview process didn't go as deep as I might have wanted to go, with the questions that I might need answers to be for the long haul. So what my suggestion is that whether we may not need to do the special meeting or executive session if we feel there's consensus on here, but I think we all need another opportunity before that vote comes up to have that one-on-one at least one more time and see if we have consensus on it. And the only reason why I brought up the special meeting, if we needed to collaborate more on that, was we just don't want to drag this out, right? And so because if it happened that we were going to go this way, then we don't want to lose time. But if the consensus is that, hey, that's kind of where we want to go now, then maybe we can forego that conversation and then just have that time and then reconvene at whenever appropriate, right?
Okay.
After.
I hear you.
Yeah. So.
To me, the most important thing is that all 5 of us are on the same side. All 5 of us need to guarantee, if we move in this direction, that we support Ms. Moore.
Right.
It has to be that way. One person out, we can't do that to her. It's not fair, number one. And number 2, this district has a terrible past of keeping people 3 years and booting them. We need to get past this, once and for all. So we've got to kind of look at the long haul here, because we have an out. If things go terribly wrong, we would be able to take care of things. I don't think that's going to happen. But if that were the case, and all of us are like, oh my God, what's happening? We have an out. But I think we need to look at kind of getting this district in the right motion for the long haul, so we keep moving forward instead of taking those steps back that we take every 3 years. So I just want to plant that in all your heads. Now, Ms. Gavin, what can we do? What do you think?
Okay, so first of all, we cannot do an executive session. We do have to operate in the sunshine.
Right.
Sunshine.
We would, so a couple of things. Currently, you do have on the agenda for this evening, as an agenda item, the approval of the superintendent's job description. That is before you for you to take action. If you want to take that in a different direction, that's a possibility. But I'm hearing from some of you that you feel that may be a little too quick for you to be able to take action, because you would like to have an opportunity of having additional one-on-one conversations with her in a more specific type of conversation of, okay, permanency, you are the superintendent, not the interim. And so you do have the ability, if you were to want to go in that direction, of scheduling a special meeting for your September meeting to take place at a time certain on September 6th, I want to say, is that meeting, wherein if you wanted to take that action, you would have that afforded to you. It could be placed as an agenda item. Correct on that?
And have a special meeting the 6th?
Yes.
Earlier?
Yes, ma'am. In other words, you have your working agenda meeting.
Right.
And
That's
you
great.
would time certain to hold your special meeting. Patty, do we also have a meeting on trim on that date as well?
No.
It's on the 15th?
On the 5th, I believe.
Okay. 5th, yeah. Okay, so it is that same.
It's the same as the 3 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am. So we already have that meeting set. It could be added to that agenda.
Yes.
So I think what I'm hearing is, first thing would happen today is you would basically suspend the search.
You would need to
That would take,
have
the
a
board would take that
consensus.
consensus on that.
Yes.
Second, there would be individual one-on-one meetings set up through Mrs. Gavin, and then on September 6th, it could be put on the agenda for board action.
Yeah, correct.
So basically a
We
three-step
can motion
process.
and vote on it at that meeting?
Yes,
Or
Yeah.
if
yes,
you want
you can
to.
do that. So you would
Yes.
have plenty of time to set that up. And we would be available to help in any possible way we can
Okay.
throughout the process that you're going through,
Dr.
answer any
Vogel,
questions
can I just
you
speak
have.
to that a little bit?
Sure.
I'm listening to all of it, and Chair Massaro, I agree with you, that, like, let's find that person, if it's Superintendent Moore, to see this district through hopefully many, many years. We have 2 experts here, including Andrea. We have 3.
Sure.
I just think the world of the 3 of you. And Will, I think, maybe spoke to this a little bit, but I would still love to go through at least some of the activities, even if it fosters a retreat or whatever with Superintendent Moore, of what is our vision for that superintendent? What are other superintendents doing, successful superintendents, where we have the survey results? I would just hate to forego not going through some of this, and not in terms of who we are ending up with, but just for the benefit of this district and for the benefit of the future superintendent. So, like, can we still talk about survey results? Can we still talk about some of the other things?
I think maybe.
I think that we've committed to their support.
Yeah.
We're paying them
Yeah.
to help us get a superintendent. So I don't think they're gonna go anywhere.
No.
And if we suspend this search, and we have one-on-ones, and all of a sudden, we're like, no, we can't do this, all right, then we're going back into we're gonna reopen the search and continue the process. And if we do it within the reasonable time frame of this month, I mean, it's August to September, 4 weeks, we still have plenty of time in September to have somebody come to have this.
Start.
Yes, exactly.
When we say
January.
suspend search, it really just, I think it's, if it's kind of what I was suggesting earlier of, we're still continuing, it's just at this point in time, we are looking at one candidate, and we're not opening it up to other candidates at this point in time.
Yes, basically.
That would be.
Dr.
suspend
Khan.
It's
the
how I
search.
would
That
like
would be
to-
correct, because currently we are on target for, at the end of today, we would be getting ready to go
Advertise,
out
right.
and
And advertise.
So we're
That's
just
what
not
we
gonna
do, right.
advertise right
Correct.
now.
We're down to one
But
candidate.
Son, I would say,
Suspend right now.
for those persons who may be interested, I think it's important to have action to suspend.
Yes.
Because we don't,
Gives the wrong impression.
Yeah,
right,
right.
and we would not want an
That's
outside
glorious.
person saying, wait, if person A is getting an interview, you have a search advertised or will advertise, why can't I be interviewed? That's why I think suspending the search is
has to be
It's
helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, I love it. I just want to make sure that all the good stuff doesn't stop.
So the only consequence is a delay in advertising the position.
Right.
If we're talking about time, right?
And I'll just throw this out, we really do have probably another month built into this schedule, because our current timeline has a special board meeting November the 7th to appoint a new superintendent. And really an effective start date is not until January.
1, right?
So you really,
We have time.
there's
Time is
a
now.
good window here.
Dr. Compton.
I just wanted to share, the more I think about this, the more I really like the idea of doing this, because it also gets us to the point where I think we can get to some of the things that you're talking about. Like, once we have a superintendent in place, we can start our master board training.
Absolutely.
We can do our strategic planning as a group and kind of go over the survey results, start planning forward in those things, instead of having to wait until January. Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I'm probably a little bit in the middle of that. I mean, there are some of those things that, like, as we're all talking, I think about, we talked about doing a retreat 2.0. Like, I would love to do that before there's an actual contract completed. Like, you're kind of saying, let's do the hire and then all this good stuff. And I guess I'm saying, can we do some of that good stuff? The interviews, maybe a retreat 2.0. I think, Shaka, you talked about like a workflow, and what is everybody like? You said you would accept this role if we could all be productive together. I kind of feel like we need to, like, let's do that together. I would hate to do that after the contract is signed. I would rather do that before, to make sure you're going to be successful, right? Like, it's a successful situation. So that's maybe a little bit different than what you were saying.
We have an outline here already. We've kind of done some of that work ahead of time, right? We have some of the parameters, salary ranges, the expectations for the role. Like, we've already kind of created this kind of model of what we're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, it's in this interview, this is a collaborative document here
That we would be working
that
on.
each one of us could work off of this and ask the questions that are most important to us, and also see, and also bring in what the other board members wanted as well, and then into that conversation through this document. But it would be typically, once, if we decided to move forward with that, then the contract is typically done next, and you have to come to terms, right? And if you can't come to terms, then
Christy would negotiate
Right.
with
Okay.
Lashaka.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. You hit on a very good point. We've already done, this work is based on the 158 responses on the survey we already had, plus your pre-search interview. So this document, like you're saying, can be used for you to formulate questions on. It's also good information for your strategic plan. The survey will continue to be turned in, correct, John?
Until September 15th.
Right.
So you'll have that to work on the strategic plan too. So you'll have a lot of documents. We'll also talk with Andrea, and we'll come up with a plan, a transition type of plan, as you're talking about, to go ahead and cover some of the things that we would normally
Because
do
we
in
have
the
the
search.
board not discussed this.
That's exactly
Because
right.
for me, like, it's real light on the organizational business
Right.
piece of it, which is, big guy for
And
me.
you know what I had to do? In fact, I added another section on it because there wasn't anything on the survey that really covered business and finance, so I added a few sections.
Thank you.
Well, that's good.
Right.
All right, so at this point, that what I'm hearing is that we're going to motion this afternoon, tonight, to just suspend the search for the possibility of setting up an adequate time for us to review the situation and appoint Ms. Moore, and then we'll go from there. Does that make sense? So
Sounds
how
good.
are we set up? We'll do one-on-ones, or if we're going to have a special meeting?
Okay, so from what I have heard from all of you is, before you make your final decision, you would like to have a more in-depth one-on-one interview process with Ms. Moore of what her actual thoughts are, strategic plan wise, moving this district forward, the forward thinking that she has of how she will move this district, and her interests and what she would bring to the table, and whether or not those interests mirror and match with your interests and what you are looking for in that leader to take this district beyond into the next few years. So those one-on-one interviews would be set up through my office with Ms. Moore, so that each of you are able to meet one-on-one and have those conversations, utilizing, as Mr. Furry indicated, this draft superintendent desired leadership qualities as your template of areas that not only you as a board expressed when you went over those survey questions, but also, as I understand it, there were 158 community members that responded to that survey
So
thus far. And those have been included as a snapshot in time of what the most important qualities were for not just you, but also your community. So you are taking the communities or those individuals who were interested thus far as to what they believe to be the qualities of the next leader for this district. You'll be able to have those conversations. Then at the September 5th meeting, we will set for a time certain for this board, if it is the pleasure of the board to go ahead and move forward with appointing interim superintendent Moore as the next superintendent for the district. That is when that action would be taken, would be at that meeting. At that point in time, I would go into negotiations along with Chair Massaro, with Ms. Moore, on her contract, the salary, etc. We would have a conversation with all of you, more specific as to whether or not there, in addition to what is contained in the job experience, job qualifications, whether or not you have specific lifts that you believe she will need to achieve in year 1, for example, in year 2. Those are the parameters that you may set forth. You want to see your metrics that you want to see her hit in that. Those are the kind of things that get placed within the actual contract. And you will have input into what that is as well. That will take place. So I could see that the actual contract, it may take, if you decide you want to hire her, it could take until October meeting, it likely at the
Well, we need
latest.
to know by September, though.
No, but it could take, I'm talking about the contract being in place.
Right.
We could reach the dollar amount, but the actual contract being approved by the board, I have to notice it. So it could be approved at the mid-September meeting, but it might wait until another special meeting set for October or the October meeting.
I guess I just have, sorry, Will, I just have an ask that I've brought up now a couple of times. Something that Superintendent Middlestat had said before was that she had 5 bosses. And for me, I didn't like that. I wanted her to think of it as one board. And so when you bring up master board training, my preference would be individual one-on-ones with Superintendent Moore. But then to me, for this vision of this cohesive board, I would prefer that we come together in a retreat or a special meeting where if Superintendent Moore can facilitate that, she'll have had the conversations with everybody, where I can kind of hear what was important to everybody and we could discuss that together. I feel like that's a piece that I'm not hearing being mentioned.
It would need to be a special meeting.
That would be, so
yes.
At the September 5 meeting, when you're making that decision on whether you want to move to appoint her, that is what you would do at
But to me, and I'm just, I'm going to speak for myself. When we were supposed to discuss the superintendent vote, it was not a discussion. I was told, you're going to you can say something. I think we can all agree when we are in the back room meeting together, it is a cohesive, it is a cooperative, collaborative board. We're able to speak freely. I personally would prefer that we do not wait to have that conversation until like the vote, because then it just becomes about the vote and not 5 colleagues coming together and having a really nice conversation.
I can agree with that.
Okay.
Can we do that?
So
Facilitate that.
we can do that.
Two
We have
special
to,
meetings.
we would have to schedule another special meeting. And so we are sitting at August
Basically a
15th.
group interview.
So.
Well, not even
It
if
wouldn't be
it's the
that,
retreat 2.0,
Yeah, got it.
which we talked about doing retreat 2.0 anyway.
So then doing like a retreat before and then doing the special meeting is what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm hearing.
That would be amazing. Where we
Right.
could talk
I could see
again
value
about
in that.
community relationships. We could talk about.
I think it's
different
important that we
things.
have 100% consensus.
I agree.
Yeah.
It has to
So-
be. It has to be, because that's the only way we can move this district as a unit forward. And so far, we're in a good position, but now we just have to work through the details, and I understand that. I agree.
It's probably more about us than it is about Lashaka more at this point.
Well,
But
when you were doing the pre-search, it seemed to me that all the board members are pretty much together on all of the priorities.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is 2.0, meaning that now Mrs. Moore would be in there, and we wouldn't use the same exact format, but we would use something similar to that, as in more of a retreat
Well,
situation.
we had, about a month ago, I don't remember, we had a retreat with Superintendent Moore, and it was really,
Okay.
it was really powerful. And we're all, most of us, or I think all of us are talkers, and so we worked through lunch, and we ran probably a little long, and I think we are hoping to be able to come together again, and I just think that would be something good to be done before we go into the vote.
Well, how can we work that out?
Three of you are scheduled to be in attendance at a 1 o'clock meeting on the 24th.
That's the ILA.
That is the ILA meeting.
Yeah, it's a Thursday, though.
I appreciate that. Special meetings can be any day of the week. My question is whether or not, my first question is, if you were to hold a meeting, I don't know how much time you're looking at. Are you looking at 3 hours?
I
Again,
see what you're saying. We could do a retreat that
Yes, ma'am.
morning. to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
afternoon.
Christy is.
I'm off that day, actually.
Oh!
So my
Wow, that was the
question
first
was,
question.
I guess my question was whether or not that might not be,
Good idea.
it's sufficient time for me to advertise this special meeting. It's sufficient, or this special retreat or whatever, it's sufficient time for me to be able to advertise that. It's sufficient time for us to get that placed. It allows you between now and the 24th to hold your one-on-one interviews. And it allows you the opportunity to then have a retreat. I would love for you to provide some kind of input as to what you would like to see on that agenda for conversation, so that way we have an agenda for that meeting. And then we would push that forward. And
what time?
9 a.m. to noon.
That's why I was asking pleasure of the board. How long are you
We do
looking
9
at?
a.m.
I think 9 to noon.
While kids are in school.
Yeah, 9 a.m. to noon, be all right with everybody?
With scheduling lunch, should we need it?
Yeah,
For
well,
a
that would be
working
12 to 1
lunch?
off, and then we have a meeting.
And then 3 of you would have a meeting.
Right, I'm just saying if we need that, if we find we need that lunchtime, maybe we plan on.
You can do a
If we
working
do-
lunch
we
as
do a
well,
working
just
lunch.
like
We
we've
could
done
do- if
before.
needed, we
We'll
do a working
lunch,
Good.
yeah, okay, that makes sense, I like that.
All right.
So the 24th, a board retreat to
9 a.m. to
basically
noon.
interview, discuss the Shaka.
All right, and we
August
have
24th.
these gentlemen indicating they're available as,
We have another conflict on the 24th, but
So-
we'll talk with Andrea and we'll see how she's.
Okay, great.
That would be,
Okay.
yes, that would be
Perfect.
wonderful.
We're in-
That works for us.
Okay.
All right, that's great.
So 9 to noon.
Ms. Moore, you can add that to your schedule there. It's add another thing to your schedule. All right, that works. We have the
In
meeting.
between now and then, if y'all give me ideas of what you would like on this agenda, so we'll add that.
Okay.
So
So
that
any
it's productive.
suggestions of things you want to discuss on that agenda, make sure you get it to her. And we'll all do it individually and she'll put it together. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right.
I just
You
have a
know
quick.
what's
all right,
really
question.
rewarding, when I look at this, is it sounds like you had a great start to the school year. So you've got
We really
everybody,
did.
and our goal is threefold, really. One is unite the board, and we've talked about that, which is positive. Unite those people that work within the school district and the organization. And you've had, like you say, probably one of the smoothest starts you ever had. You've seen the enthusiasm, all of you have been out there. And also bring the community together. And you've already had considerable community input also on it too.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think really you're thought it very carefully, and I think you're moving in the right direction.
All right, so
Christie
we're
had-
good with that?
Christie had-
Just a real quick, if we were to move forward with her contract, can we discuss the length so that we get out of this?
So we'll be able to, yes,
Yeah.
we will be able to have
All
that
of those.
conversation after the fact, but yes,
Yeah.
and we all need to go through that.
John?
And Madam Chair, if I
Yeah.
could, just maybe on a little things to remember and think about is your online survey, that officially at some point you'd want to end that and kind of update your search portal to kind of give an update on, kind of the board's direction now.
Well, it closes August 15th.
September.
September 15th,
September.
and we're meeting, we just set that meeting up for
August 4th.
August 4th. So perhaps it
Close
should,
it on the
24th, right? We should probably close it on the 24th.
Yeah,
I think
so.
that would make sense. I
Right.
agree.
And then just have,
Just
some-
have to get communications, push it out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And
24.
John, good point. Update the superintendent search right now. but
The
Right.
search
website
suspended.
portal accordingly once.
Yeah, okay.
once-
Yeah.
That
Right.
we're suspended at this time.
At this time, right.
Got it?
Just one more thing, before our interviews, I would like to receive, any resume, everything ahead of time of that meeting, just like any other applicant would submit.
That would work.
To have that when we meet, so.
That works, okay, we
Okay.
can work on that, get that. All right, that's great. I mean, I think it's something that we just needed to consider, we needed to talk about it.
No, thanks for
I could
throwing
see
it out there.
I could see everybody was kind of happy, which I haven't seen in a long time,
Yeah.
trust me. So it's good. I think we're going, now as far as the rest of this, I think we should still go over this information since you're both here. What about especially the results of so far, do you have the results? Or do you
Yes,
wanna
we
wait?
can go ahead and send those to you.
Okay.
Andrea has those, but I just took the 158 and using a non-scientific method, looked at the top three where we all were, and then I just combined what I thought what we heard in the session.
Okay.
And then because there was nothing on business and finance, I added a section on business and finance.
I saw that.
Right.
Yes.
So basically, you can take a look at it and
Okay.
use it any way you like, and hopefully that could be a guide for you.
I did notice for compensation, it was listed at 175. I believe our bottom line was 165.
Okay, great.
And I thought our top was 2.
No, it was
No,
actually
that was-
set on at 195.
Yeah, it was. We talked about 215 and went down and.
Oh, I thought we went down.
165.
I guess I thought we went down to 2.
165, right.
165.
Okay,
I know that.
right, okay.
Aaron was
Okay,
happy.
all right, just so I think that was a typo or whatever, but it was
Okay,
165.
165, great.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
coming on this.
We're happy to do
way.
it. We're happy.
We need to have this conversation. You're very supportive and helpful.
Well, we're the only search firm that loves to talk like this. We're real.
Okay, all right, so we're
good.
moving.
We're good.
My wife would be happy.
Well, we're still moving in the direction.
Oh, good.
It was very nice to
Go
see
out,
you
have a
both
nice
again.
dinner tonight.
We really like coming here. We
Christie's
really like
fun.
working here. And
All
we're-
right.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Jane.
very
I
much.
appreciate you both,
Thanks so
thank you
much.
so much.
We've got to go on to 1102, which is the Small School District Council Consortium. Ms. Gatter.
Board, you have before you, this is a renewal of our small school district council consortium. We have finally received the resolution, and this is a renewal at the same rate as we have enjoyed our consortium. And Dr. Conklin, maybe you can share with them how important and beneficial this group has been. This is Chris Doolin, just so that you know, who shares information when we are in legislative session.
And the Small School District Consortium is a part, so Chris really not only looks out for school districts, but also counties and county governments. So he's been there, oh my God, as
long as I can remember.
So a
Yes,
long
as I can
time.
remember too.
So he has tremendous relationships across both houses.
Mhm.
And I will say probably one of the best legislative debriefs. And do you all get his ongoing
the emails, yeah.
If you click on those, the information that he provides on an ongoing basis is pretty significant. And he also advocates a lot for us to speak on our behalf, whatever it might be. Compression, he assisted with compression, our funding for adults with disabilities continuation. So for a nominal fee, I think we're very beneficial to continue to be a part of the group. And we're kind of on that cusp. We're probably one of the larger small districts. So it's only small school districts.
And this is above and beyond our consortium that we have with NEFAC. NEFAC districts are included in this, but it's beyond NEFAC. It's also, it's throughout the entire state.
Most of the small school districts that are part of either like PACE or NEFAC, some of the other smaller educational consortiums, are also a member of the Small School District Consortium.
Any questions? Any concerns? I think we're good.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, we're going down to old business. Old business. Anybody have old business?
I just have comments, I guess.
I just wait to your comments, or
I guess it could go either way.
okay. Yeah, let's
Well, I
let's go.
mean, yeah, I mean, my stuff is, I'll say mine and then you
Is
can
it
say.
something you want to have a conversation about, or just want to
Just a little bit, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's- let's do it.
No, I just want to thank our the transportation team. I know it's been difficult, and it probably is every year. And so just thank you for working through everything and getting all the buses and stuff going. I'm just bringing it up because parents come to us, they approach us in Publix and
absolutely.
send us
They
text
do.
messages and stuff.
Yes, they
So
do.
I know that we'll continue to work through those details. You mentioned that as well. And also just to parents, just have some patience with us. We don't live on Facebook 24 hours a day, so we don't always know
You're right.
everything that's going on out there. But I just wanted to mention that, and I know I'm confident that things will work out.
Miss
Can I
Hunt.
just, well, if I can just add on to that, we or Superintendent Moore shouldn't be hunting through Facebook to find feedback. That's what Let's Talk. Would that be the appropriate, if there is a parent listening who wants to communicate something, it's that Let's Talk on the website that they would work through.
Yes, so parents have been submitting through Let's Talk. They also have been emailing myself directly, Mr. Freeman directly, and I will say, as of 1 o'clock, we had addressed every parent, every comment that has come in related to all of the different areas, but specifically transportation.
Oh, that's great. I guess the point is it doesn't really do a parent as much good to put something on a comment in Facebook. It's really, because we can't do anything there. It's the Let's Talk app where we can really do
Agreed.
something about it. So I just wanted to
100%.
call that out. Did you have anything else?
No, and just, to go along with that, I've been encouraging parents to reach out to us in the district because, if you send us something anonymous or tag us, we can't always address that. So.
Yes, Let's Talk or send us an email directly, and we've gotten several. And we respond every time and get back to our families.
Since we're just talking about transportation, I've received some things about the bus passes and ID cards, but that's supposed to be rolling out over the first couple of weeks, right? So
Yes.
To get those passes, okay.
We have
So-
set September 15th as our 100%. Everyone had them, but we've been focused over the last 4 days on really getting our elementary students with their IDs and scanning for our elementary students for sure.
Now, it's my understanding if you were in middle school or high school, your student ID should work as your bus pass, right? Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So if they have that, they don't They don't
Should
need
be
one.
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
As long as they have.
And we've had changes with routes. I mean, it's been just a combination of things that were, that did come up over the last couple of days. But even yesterday, we were in a better place, as we helped to ensure that every student was getting home, safely. And I'm sure, you know, by this time next week, we're gonna be in an even better place.
No doubt.
No doubt.
Anything else?
Yeah, I've got one old and a new. Okay, so actually I have a couple old. So I don't know if Dave and Josh met with everybody, but I met with Dave and Josh like last week.
They met with all of us.
Met with all of us.
No, I was bad. I have to reschedule.
Oh, okay. Well,
most of us.
so this is maybe kind of a little bit of a Patty conversation, but when we went through, and I really challenged them to give me the numbers of the true incremental cost of the membership of Belle Terre Swim and Racquet Club. And something that I found really interesting was that Frida Zamba this whole time hasn't been heated. So is it is it FPC at Frida Zamba or Matanzas? Matanzas. So Matanzas this whole time has been using an unheated pool, right? Which technically means Belle Terre Swim and Racquet Club could have technically been unheated, right? To be like for like the both swim districts. So as I was looking at the numbers, I was thinking of what is that true incremental cost. And when they went through it, it almost looked like it was about $100,000 of incremental expense by having the membership over, you know, using the facility for what we truly need for the schools. And it made me think about the fund balance that we've had a lot of conversation about, which if I remember correctly, it's maybe about $1 million that represents a percent, and I'm just like generalizing here.
I think that's what it was calculated to.
About $1 million. At which point I thought, wow, that 100,000 of maintaining a membership program is 1/10 of a percentage point, which is what we're looking at right now of trying to strengthen our fund balance a little bit. So I guess my question I wanted to bring up is, you're closing books out next month? Sorry, Patty.
No, you're good.
Because I know we didn't quite know, are we at 4.5%? Are we going to come in higher than that?
Yes, we are currently still closing out the books. The AFR will be approved, I think, on the 8th. And we are probably about a week from getting a hard number, and it is going to be higher than what we had predicted. We were able to utilize some of our ESSER grants to relieve some cost.
Okay.
So, and I'll be getting with all of you prior to that after I discuss it with our superintendent.
Okay, and so I guess the question is whether, I don't know if we need to schedule another executive session or how that would work, but I know as a board we've discussed things about getting us back up to that 5 to 8%, and I don't really know where I don't really want to discuss it too much here because I don't know what I can discuss here and what I have to discuss in executive session, but that's just a piece I wanted to bring again today because that's very top of mind for me, and I want to make sure, you know, we've talked about operational efficiency, where is the district with that? So that is one of the things I wanted to bring up today.
I'm sorry, I don't have that with me, but I will follow up with the entire board on the date that we agreed upon after the books have closed.
Okay.
I will send that date to each
Awesome, because I only bring up Belle Terre Swim and Racquet Club, which I realize we've already voted on. I only bring that up because if the numbers don't come in at a level where we, as a board, are we're not comfortable, that was a huge chunk, right,
Sure.
of money that is sitting there that if we needed to reopen or revisit that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And then another thing that I wanted to bring up was, Superintendent Moore, I don't know if you've done a correction of errors. I'm still thinking back to last month and the SRD contract, and as a board member, I kind of would like to know how did that happen, that we only had a matter of hours to vote on an over $1 million contract? Was that an attorney thing? Was that a safety thing? Was that that's something that I just wanted to bring to the table also, that I would not be comfortable just dropping that and not having any more conversation
Yeah, no.
about it.
Finance and safety were what we agreed to come back into executive session with, so that same date will apply there. But I will send you an email, and at that time, we'll give you that timeline, and we'll also give you the other items that we discussed in executive session.
Okay, and just to maybe narrow that down too, if it is, I know for instance Attorney Gavin, it's my understanding Attorney Gavin is our one attorney holistically for Flagler schools. Again, as part of that correction of errors, is that something, was there a bottleneck there, right? That, and I don't know what happened. I would just like to know.
The sheriff.
We will definitely give you that timeline.
Yeah, there's issues there. He was holding a lot of that waiting to see.
And we can't control, we cannot control them, but we can control
No,
us.
that's where the holdup was, and he was waiting to see how much money we were getting from the state. That's part of his calculations.
Okay.
And that's why he was dragging his feet.
Well, it's a continued conversation, I think, for this board to have.
I agree.
And so I've already talked about budget. Okay, so then that's it for me for old business.
Okay. Anybody else? Old business? New business? New business? Sally, you got?
Yeah, just real quick.
Go ahead.
Something that had occurred to me as we were getting ready for the first day of school was, I don't know, did we ever have a conversation as a board about COVID? And I know that this is something that we don't really talk as much about anymore, but there is kind of an uptick. I know people who were coming home from vacations with COVID. Have we as a board discussed this at all? Do we need to discuss it at all, Superintendent Moore? I don't know if that's a question for you. Is that now just kind of lumped in with flu, or do we need to discuss as a board anything with policy? It's just something that we hadn't talked about.
We have not discussed it. You're absolutely correct. Do we need to discuss it? I'm not sure, because it would fall into our health practices. There is an uptick. There's a new strain out there.
Right now, if an individual is sick or have fever or vomiting, they will follow the normal protocols that we have, and they will take off a day, and that will be charged to their sick leave.
But students too? What about students?
Same thing. Same thing. If a student has a fever, if they're vomiting, they would go home. They have to be fever for 24 hours before returning.
Have we done anything safety practices, healthy practices, communication amongst our family?
We continue to encourage our students to wash their hands,
Okay.
But no additional measures related specifically to COVID.
There hasn't been anything from the health department to say that we have to do anything extra other than what we've already done.
Not at this point.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, that could change.
Right.
That could change depending on
So
how many cases.
right now, we're in
there are.
compliance with everything we're supposed to do. Okay.
So I guess it would just be a matter of you keeping the board posted if there's anything that
Yeah,
we need to do.
definitely.
It hadn't been brought up at all, and I just thought, hey, I'm gonna bring it up.
That's fine.
So thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, anybody else new business? I have one thing under new business, and that is on September 8th at 9 a.m., there is a mandatory quorum meeting. That's AFR, I believe, Patty.
Yes.
Yes. So it's September 8th, and it's 9 a.m., and we need to have a
What
quorum.
are we doing? Because
That's what I'm trying to find out.
I do have to work that day.
Okay, it's a 9 a.m. meeting, so we're down one. We can't be down two.
I will be here.
I will be here.
I will be here too.
Wait,
Okay.
hold on a second. Is that the day?
No, 9/8 is.
Wait. Oh no, that's.
So we have two special meetings coming up. September 5th is a 5:15
Right.
trim meeting. That is after our agenda meeting.
Okay, got that.
And then on September 8th, we have a 9 a.m. meeting.
Right. And like I said, we have to have a quorum. So
Yes.
let's make sure that, I just want to make sure you have that on your calendars. For
Yeah,
those of you who
I have it
make
on the calendar.
I will be there.
I have
So
both on my
It looks like everybody will be there, except
Mm-hmm.
you've got to work, and that's fine. You got it covered.
Thank you.
For attending.
Yeah, we're good. As
So
long as we're that way.
which meeting, we're doing our retreat meeting with LaShaka, then what meeting is the item gonna be on an agenda?
It is currently set to be on the Tuesday meeting with the 5:15 time certain, so that it will be an evening
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah,
That was
and
the intent,
everybody's
was
gonna
going to
be at that meeting.
September 5th, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So before our agenda workshop, we're having that special meeting.
After.
After, it would be.
So we have a 5:15 meeting.
You have that 5:15 meeting, it's gonna be.
Oh, we're
after
gonna
5:15.
add the
Yes, sir.
superintendent's conversation into that meeting.
Yes,
That was-
right.
okay.
So go after,
I'm
yeah,
with-
it'll just
okay.
be longer
Yes,
than
sir, so
the.
that way it will be an evening vote.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right,
I'm okay with that.
that works. Add that in there. All right, any other new business? Hearing none, we'll go to public comment. Do we have any public comments?
I have no public comment.
We have no public comments. Oh. Closing comments. Go right down the end.
All
You're in
right.
line. Gavin now.
Just want to say it was an outstanding first day of school. I just love the enthusiasm across the district. Very excited, and I just want the parents to know that everybody's working very hard to make this go as smoothly as possible. So give us some patience, but where we may be lacking, we're going to get that right real soon, and just be a little bit patient with us. That's all.
No, I'll mostly save it for tonight, but yeah, it's been a great start to the year, and I've loved just being able to be on the campuses and see how everything's going, and thank you to all our teachers and staff. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll just also share appreciation, Superintendent Moore, for your leadership, and sounds like things are off to a great start, so that's great. Thank you.
I will associate myself with all those comments.
Love it.
And me too, because we agree. That's a great thing. I'm glad that the two of you got to do that. That first day is very exceptional.
Best.
And, you know, it gives you a different perspective on things, and I'm glad you got to do that with Ms. Moore.
You got to see where all the money goes to all the buildings.
Yeah, and you're happy. And, yeah, that's a good thing. That's what it's all about. So I'd like to thank everybody then. I am going to officially adjourn. We have a 6 o'clock meeting tonight. We'll see you all there.